I had always believed that love was enough. That trust, once given, should never be questioned. My husband, Daniel, had made me feel secure in ways I never thought possible. When we got married 3 years ago, I felt like I had finally found my forever. Then came our son, Liam, a little piece of both of us, binding our love in the most beautiful way. Life was good. Almost perfect. Except for one small, nagging problem. His ex-wife, Claire, lived right next door. I knew from the beginning that they had history. They had once shared a life, a home, and for years, a love that had burned out before I came into the picture. But that didn't mean it was easy for me to accept. While Daniel assured me there was nothing left between them, I couldn't ignore the unease that settled in my stomach every time I saw her. She was stunning, always effortlessly put together, her smile just a little too warm whenever she greeted Daniel. She would wave at me from across the fence, acting as if we were all one big, happy, modern family. But I wasn't fooled. There was something in the way she lingered when she spoke to him, the way her gaze softened just a bit too much when he laughed. I had asked Daniel more than once if we could move. Just for a fresh start, somewhere that didn't come with baggage lurking over the fence. But he had been firm. "She doesn't matter, Emily," he had said one night as we lay in bed, his fingers tracing small circles on my back. "She's in the past. I love you, not her. Trust me." I had nodded, pushing my doubts aside. After all, trust was the foundation of marriage. But trust could be broken. And I was about to learn that the hard way. It was a crisp autumn morning when I told Daniel that Liam and I would be gone for most of the day. My best friend, Sarah, was celebrating her birthday, and I wanted to spend some time with her. "You sure you don't want to come?" I asked as I packed Liam's diaper bag, glancing at Daniel. He was seated at the kitchen table, sipping his coffee, his eyes scanning his phone. "Can't," he replied, not looking up. "I've got a ton of work to do around the house. Gotta fix the back gate, clean out the garage." I hesitated, but then shrugged it off. There was nothing unusual about it. He wasn't much of a social guy, and he always had some project or another keeping him busy. So I kissed him goodbye, buckled Liam into his car seat, and headed out. The party was in full swing when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I had been laughing with Sarah and a few others when I pulled it out and saw the caller ID. My neighbor, Mr. Hughes. Frowning, I stepped away from the noise and answered. "Emily," his voice was hushed, urgent. "I don't mean to intrude, but I thought you should know. A woman just walked into your yard." I think it was Claire." The words slammed into me like a punch. "Claire? At my house? With my husband?" My blood ran cold. Thank you, Mr. Hughes," I managed to say before hanging up. My hands were shaking as I gripped the phone. For a few seconds, I stood there, frozen, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe she was just dropping something off. Maybe Daniel had called her over for some reason. Maybe. No. There was no reason she should be there. Not when I wasn't home. My heart pounding, I turned back toward Sarah. "Can you watch Liam for a little while?" My voice was steadier than I felt. Sarah frowned. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah. Just need to check on something. Won't be long." Without waiting for a response, I grabbed my keys and rushed to my car. The drive home felt like an eternity. My mind spun with worst-case scenarios, my stomach churning with a dread I couldn't push away. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed immediately that the front door was locked. The curtains were drawn. The house looked too still. I stepped out of the car, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Quietly, carefully, I made my way around the house. The back door. It was slightly open. I pushed it wider, stepping inside. And that was when I saw them. Daniel. Claire. Together. I stood there, frozen in place, my breath caught in my throat. Claire was pressed against the kitchen counter, her hands gripping the edge, and Daniel, my husband, stood close, too close. His back was turned to me, but Claire's eyes flicked up as the door creaked open, locking onto mine. Her expression changed instantly, from amusement to shock, and then something else. Guilt? No. Not guilt. Satisfaction. That was what made my stomach churn the most. Daniel spun around at the look on Claire's face, and when his gaze met mine, his eyes went wide. Emily. Don't. My voice was ice. A quiet, deadly kind of cold. His mouth opened and closed, as if scrambling for words. I watched as he stepped back from Claire, like that would erase the moment I had just witnessed. Claire, on the other hand, remained completely composed. She casually adjusted the strap of her dress, a smirk ghosting across her lips. Emily, she said smoothly, as if greeting an old friend. You're home early. I wanted to slap that smug look right off her face. I turned to Daniel, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Tell me the truth. Right now. Emily, it's not what it looks like, he started, taking a cautious step toward me. Oh, really? My voice trembled with barely contained rage. Because it looks like my husband is standing in our kitchen with his ex-wife, behind my back, when he told me he had work to do. He swallowed hard. She just came over to talk. Claire let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. Oh, Danny. Lying to the very end. I felt something crack inside me. Danny. She had called him Danny. I didn't even call him that. The familiarity in her voice, the way she said it so effortlessly, made my skin crawl. I turned my full fury on him. How long? I demanded, my voice sharper than I had ever heard it. How long has this been going on? Daniel paled. Emily, please, it's not. How long? His silence was my answer. My chest heaved, my pulse pounding in my ears. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But more than anything, I wanted to understand how the man I had trusted, the man who had promised me forever, could betray me like this. Claire pushed off the counter, her heels clicking against the tile as she moved toward me. Oh, sweetheart, she crooned, her voice dripping with false sympathy. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but Daniel and I, well, let's just say old habits die hard. Get out, I whispered, my voice shaking. She tilted her head, feigning confusion. Sorry, what was that? I said get out. My voice exploded from me, raw and furious. Claire raised an eyebrow, but she didn't argue. She reached for her purse on the counter, taking her sweet time before sauntering toward the back door. As she passed Daniel, she placed a hand on his chest, lingering for just a moment. I thought he would push her away. He didn't. That was the moment my heart broke completely. With a final, triumphant smirk, Claire walked out into the sunlight, leaving destruction in her wake. I turned back to Daniel, my breathing ragged. You lied to me, I whispered. He ran a hand through his hair, looking more frustrated than guilty. Emily, please, just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. My voice was eerily calm now. A cold, hollow emptiness had settled over me, smothering the fire of my rage. You cheated. You destroyed everything. His jaw clenched. I never meant to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, well. That makes everything better, doesn't it? For a split second, his mask slipped. Guilt flashed in his eyes, but it was too little, too late. I turned on my heel and walked away, my hands trembling as I grabbed my keys from the counter. Emily, where are you going? I stopped at the doorway, not looking back. Away from you. Then I slammed the door behind me. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached, but I couldn't relax. My mind was spinning, replaying the moment over and over like a cruel, inescapable loop. Claire's smirk. Daniel's silence. That lingering touch between them. The sheer betrayal of it all made my stomach turn. At some point, I realized my phone was vibrating in my bag. I reached for it, still shaky, and saw Sarah's name flashing on the screen. I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I could even speak without breaking down. But then I pictured Liam, waiting for me at her place, his tiny hands reaching for me, his innocent little face, completely unaware that his father had just shattered our family. I took a deep breath and answered. Emily? Sarah's voice was sharp with concern. Where are you? Are you okay? I swallowed, my throat dry. No, my voice cracked. No, I'm not okay. What happened? I closed my eyes, gripping the phone like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. You were right, I whispered. All those times you told me Claire was too close, that Daniel was too dismissive about it, you were right. There was a brief silence. Then, softly, O.M. I wiped at my eyes, even though no tears had fallen yet. I walked in on them. In our kitchen. I don't even know how long it's been going on. Where is he now? I don't know. I left. You're coming here. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. I exhaled shakily. Sarah, Emily, listen to me, she cut in, firm but kind. You are not going through this alone. You are coming here, right now, and we are going to figure this out together. I hesitated for only a second before nodding, even though she couldn't see me. Okay. I'm on my way. When I arrived at Sarah's house, she was already waiting outside, her arms crossed, her expression a mix of anger and concern. As soon as I stepped out of the car, she rushed to me, wrapping me in a tight hug. That was when the first tear fell. I hadn't let myself cry before. I had been running on pure shock, on disbelief, but now, in the safety of my best friend's arms, the dam broke. I sobbed. For my marriage. For my son. For the life I thought I had. Sarah just held me, rubbing my back in slow circles. I've got you, she murmured. I've got you. After what felt like forever, she pulled back, her eyes blazing. I swear to God, Emily, I will kill him. A watery laugh escaped me. Get in line. She led me inside, where Liam was happily playing with blocks on the living room floor. The moment he saw me, his face lit up. Mama. The sound of his little voice nearly broke me all over again. I scooped him up, burying my face in his soft hair. Hey, baby, I whispered, my voice thick. Mama's here. I held him a little tighter, feeling his tiny heartbeat against mine. For him, I had to be strong. For him, I had to figure out what came next. Sarah made tea while I sat curled up on her couch, Liam playing beside me. She didn't push me to talk right away, just let me breathe. But after a while, she sat down across from me and gave me that look, the one that meant business. What are you going to do? I stared at my mug, watching the steam curl into the air. I don't know. Are you going to confront him? I let out a bitter laugh. I already did. He tried to lie at first, but Claire, she was practically gloating. Like she wanted me to find out. Sarah's expression darkened. That witch. She's been waiting for this moment. I nodded. And I played right into her hands. Sarah shook her head fiercely. No. She didn't win anything, Em. You are the one with the life, the husband, the child. She's just, she waved a hand angrily, a pathetic, desperate woman clinging to something that wasn't even hers anymore. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I need answers, Sarah. I need to know how long this has been happening. If it was just today, or if it's been months. Years. Her jaw clenched. Then you need proof. I blinked at her. Proof? She leaned forward. Emily, you can't just take his word for it. You need to see for yourself. His phone. His emails. If he's been sneaking around, there will be evidence. I hesitated. Sarah, I don't know. Don't you dare start talking about trust right now, she snapped. That man just threw your trust out the window. If he's been lying to you, you deserve to know the whole truth. I chewed on my lip, my mind racing. I hated the idea of snooping, of lowering myself to that level. But the truth was, Daniel had already betrayed me. The man I thought I knew had been keeping secrets. Did I really want to keep living in the dark? I exhaled slowly. You're right. Sarah smirked. Of course I am. I rolled my eyes, but the faintest ghost of a smile tugged at my lips. Even in the middle of my world falling apart, she knew how to make me feel a little less lost. I glanced at Liam, playing happily, blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing around us. For him, I had to be strong. For him, I had to find out the truth. And if Daniel thought he could keep lying to me, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. I sat in Sarah's living room long after Liam had fallen asleep in my arms, my mind spinning with what I had to do next. I could have walked away. I could have packed a bag, taken Liam, and left Daniel to his lies. But that wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed the truth. The whole truth. Sarah, being the no-nonsense best friend that she was, had already started strategizing. Okay, listen, she said, pacing in front of me. We need to get into his phone. I let out a heavy sigh. Sarah. No. Don't start. She held up a hand. This isn't about snooping. This is about getting the proof you deserve. I bit my lip. What if I find something I can't handle? Her eyes softened. Emily, you've already handled the worst part. You walked in on him with her. Whatever you find now. It's just confirmation. She was right. I hated that she was right, but she was. I took a deep breath. Okay. I'll do it. Sarah nodded, satisfied. Good. Do you know his passcode? I hesitated. Yeah, it's Liam's birthday. She scoffed. Wow. He really is an idiot. That almost made me smile. Almost. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the sun had set. The house was dark, and for a moment, I just sat in the car, gathering my strength. Then I stepped inside. Daniel was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up the moment he heard the door, his expression unreadable. Emily. I ignored him, walking straight past him and toward the stairs. Emily, please, he tried again, standing. Can we just talk? I stopped at the bottom of the stairs, my back still to him. Talk. I let out a hollow laugh. You mean like how you talked to Claire today? He flinched. It wasn't. Don't lie. I turned to face him, my arms crossed. Not anymore. His jaw clenched, but he nodded. Okay. No more lies. I studied him for a long moment. Good. Then I walked up the stairs, leaving him standing there. I waited until he was asleep. The sound of his slow, steady breathing filled the room, but I wasn't fooled. That man wasn't sleeping peacefully. Not tonight. His phone was on the nightstand, face down. I reached for it with shaking fingers, turning it over. The screen lit up. I exhaled slowly and typed in Liam's birthday. The phone unlocked. Sarah had been right. Daniel was an idiot. I swallowed hard, my heart hammering in my chest as I clicked into his messages. My breath caught when I saw Claire's name at the top of his most recent texts. I hesitated for only a second before opening the thread. And then my world shattered all over again. Claire, I miss you. Daniel, I miss you too. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse roaring in my ears as I scrolled further. Claire, she almost caught us last time. Be careful. Daniel, I will. I promise. I inhaled sharply, my fingers shaking. This wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time thing. This had been happening for months. And then, the final dagger to my heart. Claire, one day, we won't have to sneak around anymore. Daniel, I know, baby. Soon. Baby. I felt physically sick. I had been sleeping next to this man every night, loving him, trusting him, while he was planning a future with her. My hands trembled as I clicked out of the messages and opened his photo album. I wasn't sure why I did it, maybe some small, desperate part of me still wanted to believe there was some kind of mistake. But there it was. Picture after picture of them. At restaurants. In her car. Even one of them in our backyard. My stomach twisted violently, bile rising in my throat. I had all the proof I needed. And now, Daniel was going to pay. I locked his phone and placed it back on the nightstand before slipping out of bed as quietly as possible. I needed air. I needed Sarah. I crept downstairs, clutching my own phone in my shaking hands, and dialed her number the moment I stepped outside. She answered immediately. Emily? It's worse than I thought, I whispered, my voice breaking. Sarah, they've been doing this for months. Months. Silence. Then. Tell me where you are. I'm coming to get you. I wiped at my face, realizing for the first time that I was crying. I can't just leave, Sarah. I have to think. I have to figure out what I'm going to do next. She exhaled sharply. Then let's figure it out together. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Okay. I had walked into my marriage blind. But now? Now, my eyes were wide open. And I was ready for war. I barely slept. After the gut-wrenching truth I had uncovered on Daniel's phone, there was no turning back. No pretending. No pushing down the pain. I had seen the messages. The pictures. The promises. Daniel and Claire had been carrying on behind my back for months, lying to my face, making a fool of me. And worst of all, he had done it with her, a woman who had always lingered too close, watching me with those knowing, smug eyes. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was furious. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through possibilities. What now? Did I pack a bag and leave? Did I throw his clothes onto the lawn and set them on fire? Did I wake him up right now and slap the truth across his face? By the time the first streaks of dawn lit up the bedroom, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to slink away quietly. If Daniel wanted to betray me, he was going to face the consequences. I moved through the morning like a ghost, numb but determined. Liam was up early, babbling as I got him dressed. Daniel stirred in bed but didn't wake, and I took that as a blessing. I wasn't ready to face him yet. By the time I had Liam in the car and was pulling out of the driveway, my hands were shaking. I gripped the wheel tighter, trying to steady myself. Sarah was already waiting when I got to her house. The moment I stepped inside, she took one look at me and nodded. You found what you were looking for. I nodded stiffly, my throat too tight to speak. She exhaled. Okay. So, what's the plan? I sank onto her couch, setting Liam down with his toys before pressing my hands to my temples. I don't know. My voice cracked. I want to leave. I should leave. But you want to make him pay first, she finished for me, her eyes gleaming. I let out a slow, shaky breath. I don't want to walk away without him knowing that I know. That I see him for what he really is. Sarah smirked. Oh, honey. If you want to destroy him, I can help. I gave her a weak laugh. Not murder, Sarah. She snapped her fingers dramatically. Darn. Okay, then what? I stared at my hands. I want him to feel the weight of what he's done. I want him to see everything I saw. To know that he didn't just get away with it. Sarah's grin widened. Perfect. We'll give him a front row seat to his own downfall. I raised an eyebrow. How? She leaned in. We set the stage. We show him what it feels like to be blindsided. A plan began to take shape in my mind. A slow smile spread across my lips. Let's do it. That evening, I walked into my house with my head held high. Daniel was in the kitchen, his phone in his hand. He looked up when he saw me, his expression uncertain. Hey. I set my bag down calmly. Hey. His brows furrowed. Where were you all day? I smiled, the kind of smile that sent chills down a man's spine. Out. Thinking. His grip tightened around his phone. Emily, listen. I know yesterday was. Oh, don't worry, Daniel, I cut in, my voice sickly sweet. We're going to talk. He looked wary now. Okay. I stepped closer, keeping my voice light. But first, I have something for you. I pulled out his phone, the one I had taken the liberty of airdropping evidence onto before returning it to his nightstand that morning. His face paled the second he saw his screen light up. The images. The messages. Their messages. His head snapped up. Emily. Don't. I held up a hand, my voice steel. I read everything. Silence stretched between us. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He knew. He knew there was no talking his way out of this. I trusted you, I said, my voice shaking now, not with sadness, but with rage. I believed in you. And this whole time, you were sneaking around with her. His shoulders sagged. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I let out a humorless laugh. Oh. And how was it supposed to be, Daniel? Were you going to keep lying until I caught you in bed together? Or were you waiting for the right moment to leave me? He clenched his jaw. Emily, I never wanted to hurt you. I scoffed. That's funny, because you did. Over and over again. Every time you snuck off. Every time you called her baby instead of your wife. His face crumpled. It just happened. No, Daniel. I stepped closer, my voice deadly quiet. A car accident happens. A spilled drink happens. You don't just accidentally betray your wife for months. His hands curled into fists at his sides. Emily, I cut him off with a slow shake of my head. Save it. I don't want your apologies. His eyes searched mine, desperation creeping in now. Then what do you want? I stared at him, unblinking. I want you to know that I see you for exactly who you are. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked away. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to throw things or cry or beg for an explanation. Because I had one. For the first time in this entire mess, I had the power. And Daniel? He had nothing. Daniel didn't follow me. I don't know if it was because he was too stunned or because he knew there was nothing he could say that would fix this. Either way, as I walked up the stairs, my heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. I had taken my power back. But I wasn't done yet. I entered our bedroom, no, my bedroom now, and shut the door behind me. My hands were steady as I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started packing. I wasn't running away. No, this was strategy. Sarah had said something earlier that stuck with me. If you really want to make him feel it, leave before he gets the chance to beg. So that's exactly what I was going to do. I was going to take my son, walk out of this house, and leave Daniel drowning in the mess he created. Let him sit with it. Let him feel the silence. Let him wonder if he had just lost everything. Maybe then he'd understand exactly what he had thrown away. I was zipping up the duffel bag when the bedroom door creaked open. Daniel stood in the doorway, looking wrecked. His hair was a mess from running his hands through it, his eyes red like he hadn't slept. "Where are you going?" His voice was rough, hesitant. I didn't even pause. "Somewhere you're not." He flinched but recovered quickly. "Emily, can we just talk about this?" I let out a sharp laugh. "Talk? Oh, now you want to talk. Where was all this communication when you were sneaking around with Claire?" He exhaled through his nose, his jaw tightening. "I made a mistake." I turned to face him fully, my arms crossed. "No, Daniel. A mistake is forgetting our anniversary. A mistake is one drunken kiss that never happens again." I took a step forward, my voice a blade slicing through the space between us. "What you did? That was a choice." Repeated. Over. And over. He dragged a hand down his face. "I don't love her, Emily." The words should have meant something. Should have made me pause. But instead, they only filled me with more contempt. "Oh, so what, you just ruined our marriage for a little excitement? For fun?" Daniel swallowed hard. "It wasn't like that." I tilted my head. "No?" "Then tell me, Danny," I spat the nickname Claire used, watching him flinch, "how exactly was it?" Silence. Because he had no answer. Because he knew I was right. I shook my head and turned back to my bag. "I'm done with this conversation." His breath hitched. "Emily, please don't take Liam." That made me pause. Slowly, I turned to him, my hands curling into fists at my sides. "You don't get to say his name like that. Like you're some devoted father." He looked genuinely hurt. "I am a good father." I narrowed my eyes. "A good father doesn't betray his son's mother." His face twisted. "Emily." I held up a hand. "Save it." Then I grabbed my bag, slinging it over my shoulder. "I'm not taking Liam away from you. I just need space." I brushed past him, but he caught my wrist. The contact sent a shock through me, not because it was gentle, but because for the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel anything. No love. No warmth. Nothing. His grip was light, almost hesitant. "Emily, I looked down at his hand on mine. "Let go, Daniel." His fingers twitched, but he released me. I walked down the stairs without another word, picked up Liam, and walked out the front door. Sarah was waiting with the spare bedroom already set up when I arrived. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and just nodded. "You did it." I let out a breath. "I did it." She grinned. "So, what's next?" I stared out the window at the darkened sky, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Now?" I turned back to her, my lips curling into a slow, dangerous smile. "Now, I make him regret everything." I woke up the next morning feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Power. For too long, I had been on the receiving end of Daniel's lies, his deceit, his betrayal. But not anymore. I had walked out on my terms. I had left before he could try to manipulate me, before he could spew half-hearted apologies in an attempt to keep me tethered. Now, it was his turn to suffer. Sarah was already up when I emerged from the guest room. She was sipping coffee, scrolling through her phone, and when she looked up at me, a knowing smirk spread across her lips. "You've got that look," she said. I grabbed a mug and poured myself some coffee. "What look?" "The, I'm about to ruin a man's life, look." I took a slow sip of my coffee and met her gaze over the rim of my mug. "Good." She set her phone down, eyes gleaming. "So, what's the plan?" I exhaled, setting my mug down. "First, I need to find a lawyer." Sarah nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Straight to the legal battlefield. I love it." I ran a hand through my hair. I want to make sure I have full custody of Liam. I don't trust Daniel. He's already proven he can lie to me effortlessly. Who's to say he won't do the same in court? Sarah leaned forward. Then you need evidence. Texts. Photos. Credit card statements. Everything that shows a pattern of deceit. I smirked. Already ahead of you. Her eyes widened. No. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and slid it across the table. Check my gallery. She grabbed the phone, scrolling, and then let out a low whistle. Damn, Em. You took screenshots of everything. I shrugged. You said I needed proof. She laughed. I was thinking a couple of texts. But this? This is a gold mine. I took another sip of coffee. Let's see him try to lie his way out of this. Sarah's smirk widened. I have never been more proud to be your best friend. Later that afternoon, I made my first move. I hadn't responded to a single one of Daniel's messages or missed calls. He was spiraling, and I wanted him to stay in that panic for just a little longer. But it was time to take things a step further. I logged into our shared bank account and calmly withdrew half. Not a penny more, not a penny less. This wasn't about revenge. This was about strategy. Daniel didn't get to financially control me. If he thought I was going to sit back while he played house with his ex-wife, he had another thing coming. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. Daniel. Daniel, what the hell, Emily? I smiled. Then, another text. Daniel, you took half our savings? I took my time before responding. Correction, I took my half. See you in court. He called immediately, but I didn't answer. I wanted him to stew in it. That evening, Sarah and I sat on her couch, sipping wine while Liam played with his toys on the floor. My phone buzzed again. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Him again? I checked. Nope. Claire. Sarah practically jumped out of her seat. Oh my God. Read it. I rolled my eyes but opened the message. Claire, wow, Emily. Classy move. Running away like a coward? Sarah gasped dramatically. Oh, she did not. I smirked. Oh, but she did. Claire, Daniel is a mess. You could have at least handled this like an adult. I let out a humorless laugh. She wants me to be the adult? The mistress wants to lecture me on maturity? Sarah grabbed my phone. Let me answer. I yanked it back. Absolutely not. She pouted. At least tell me what you're going to say. I thought for a second, then typed. Don't worry, Claire. You can have Daniel. You deserve each other. She read the text and grinned. Perfect. I hit send. A minute later, another message came through. Claire, he doesn't want me, Emily. He wants you. He's been calling you non-stop. Maybe you should stop playing games and just talk to him. My stomach twisted. Not because I believed her. But because, deep down, I knew Daniel would try to win me back. Not out of love, but out of fear. He didn't expect me to walk away. He thought I would stay, fight for him, beg for him. He didn't realize that I was done fighting for someone who had already chosen someone else. I locked my phone and tossed it onto the couch. Let's order pizza. Sarah studied me. You okay? I nodded. Better than I've been in a long time. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't worried about what Daniel wanted. I was only focused on what I wanted. And I wanted to win. Daniel was unraveling. It had been 3 days since I left, and in that time, he had called me over 20 times, sent dozens of texts, and even emailed me, because apparently, desperation makes a man rediscover formal communication. I ignored every single one. Sarah and I had agreed that silence was the best weapon. Let him feel the void. Let him wonder if I was gone for good. Let him sit in the wreckage of his own mistakes. And from the looks of it, he was struggling. I scrolled through his messages, not to respond, but to read how he was spiraling. Daniel, Emily, please. Just talk to me. Daniel, I made a mistake. I swear to you, Claire means nothing. Daniel, do you really want to throw away our family over this? That one made me laugh. I was throwing away our family? Not the man who had been sneaking around for months. Typical. But then came a message that made my blood run cold. Daniel, I talked to a lawyer today. I sat up straighter. That was unexpected. Sarah, who had been watching Love is Blind next to me, noticed my shift in posture. What? I turned the phone so she could see. She raised an eyebrow. Interesting. He's finally realizing you're serious. I nodded slowly. Yeah, but why lawyer up now? He knows I'm the one who started this. Sarah smirked. Because men like Daniel don't actually believe they'll lose. Not until they feel it. My stomach twisted. She was right. Daniel had spent our entire marriage thinking I would always be there. That I would forgive. That I would choose our history over his betrayal. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I clenched my jaw and typed my response. Me, good. I hope your lawyer told you how much this is going to cost you. He read it immediately. Daniel, Emily, come on. We don't have to do this like enemies. I exhaled sharply. That was the thing about men like Daniel. They didn't want to fight, they wanted control. And when they lost it, they panicked. Too bad for him. I was done being controlled. I locked my phone and stood. I need to go home. Sarah nearly dropped her wine. Excuse me? Why? I need to see the house. Check on things. I grabbed my coat. And more importantly, I need Daniel to see me. Sarah's lips curled into a wicked smile. Oh, I love this. I smirked. I know you do. When I pulled into our driveway, his driveway now, I saw Daniel sitting on the front steps, his head in his hands. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt indifferent. His head snapped up as I got out of the car. Emily. I shut the door calmly. Daniel. He stood, his eyes scanning my face like he was trying to gauge if I was here to reconcile. You came back. I raised an eyebrow. Did I? He hesitated. Didn't you? I let out a soft, humorless chuckle. I came to pick up some things. I stepped past him and unlocked the door. That's it. He followed me inside. Emily, please. Just sit with me. Let's talk. I turned to him, crossing my arms. Talk about what? How you threw away our marriage for Claire. How you lied to me over and over again. He swallowed hard. I never wanted to hurt you. I tilted my head. And yet, here we are. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he ran a hand through his hair. I don't want a messy divorce. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Oh, Daniel. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You lost the right to want anything the moment you betrayed me. He exhaled shakily. Emily. I turned away before he could finish, heading up the stairs. I'll be out of your way in 10 minutes. I felt his gaze burning into my back, but I didn't look back. Because for the first time in this entire mess, I wasn't the one left behind. The house felt different. Not because anything had physically changed, but because I had. I walked up the stairs with my head high, my steps measured, controlled. Gone was the woman who used to call this place a home. Who used to make grocery lists at the kitchen counter, rock our son to sleep in the nursery, wait up late for a husband who was working late. This was no longer my home. It was just a house. And Daniel? He was just a man I used to love. I entered the bedroom, no, his bedroom now, and grabbed the suitcase I had left behind in my rush to leave. I packed deliberately, not rushed, making sure I took everything that belonged to me. Not a single sweater, not a single piece of jewelry, not a single memory of US would remain. By the time I zipped the suitcase shut, Daniel was leaning against the doorway. "You're really doing this," he murmured. I turned to him, arms crossed. "What did you think was going to happen?" His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "I don't know." I sighed, shaking my head. "That's the problem, Daniel. You never thought this far ahead." He scrubbed a hand over his face. "Emily, Stop." My voice was quiet but firm. "I don't need an apology." He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Then what do you need?" I studied him for a long moment, then gave him the honest answer. "Nothing." His face crumpled. "Good." I reached for my suitcase, dragging it off the bed. "Emily, please." His voice was desperate now. What if we tried counseling? What if? I let out a sharp laugh. "Counseling? Now?" I turned to face him fully. "You think therapy is going to undo months of betrayal? Of sneaking around? Of lying to me?" He exhaled, defeated. "I don't want to lose you." I tilted my head. "You already did." His mouth opened, but no words came. And that was when I knew. Daniel wasn't just mourning our marriage. He was mourning his control over me. For years, he had relied on the fact that I would always forgive, that I would always stay. But not this time. I grabbed my suitcase and brushed past him, moving down the stairs without hesitation. I didn't pause. Didn't look back. I opened the front door, feeling the cool evening air hit my skin. Freedom. Finally, I was free. I stepped outside, my heels clicking against the pavement as I walked toward my car. But just as I reached the driver's side door, I heard it. A voice. Her voice. Well, Claire drawled from the sidewalk, arms crossed, that infuriating smirk plastered on her face. "Leaving so soon?" I clenched my jaw. I should have expected this. Claire had never been one to sit quietly on the sidelines. No, she thrived on getting the last word. I slowly turned to her, keeping my expression neutral. "Something you need?" She took a step closer, eyes gleaming with amusement. "I just find it funny, you know. You spent all this time playing the devoted wife, the perfect little homemaker." She cocked her head. "And in the end, you still lost him." I exhaled slowly. Claire wanted a reaction. She wanted me to break, to lash out, to show her that she had won. But she hadn't. Because I wasn't the one standing outside a man's house, desperate for scraps of validation. I smiled. "Oh, Claire." I took a step forward, lowering my voice just enough to make her lean in. "You think you won something?" Her smirk faltered. "Excuse me?" I chuckled softly, shaking my head. "You can have him. Every lie, every excuse, every late night he works late, it's all yours now." I leaned in just slightly, watching her expression shift. "Enjoy it while it lasts." Her smirk disappeared entirely. I had hit a nerve. Good. I didn't wait for her response. I turned, got into my car, and drove away without a second glance. Let her wonder. Let her be the one looking over her shoulder, waiting for the moment Daniel did to her what he did to me. Because one day, he would. And when that day came, I'd be too busy living my best life to even care. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since I walked out of that house, since I looked Daniel in the eye and told him he had already lost me. Since I chose myself. In those 2 weeks, I had met with a lawyer, secured temporary custody of Liam, and started searching for a new place of my own. Sarah had been my rock through it all, helping me sort through the mess Daniel had left behind. And Daniel? Oh, he was falling apart. His messages had gone from pleading to frustrated, from "I love you, please come back" to "Are you really doing this to our family?" I ignored them all. Because this wasn't about our family anymore. This was about me reclaiming my life. And today? Today, I was making it official. I arrived at the lawyer's office 10 minutes early. Daniel was already there, sitting in the waiting area, bouncing his knee anxiously. The moment he saw me, he stood. "Emily." I held up a hand. "We're not doing this here." He swallowed, nodding stiffly, and we both took our seats in silence. 15 minutes later, we were sitting across from each other in the conference room, our lawyers at our sides. Daniel's lawyer, a stiff-looking man in his 50s, cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss the terms of the divorce and custody agreement." I nodded. "I want full custody of Liam." Daniel tensed. "Emily, come on. Daniel will have visitation rights, but primary custody stays with me," I continued, my voice even. "Given his history of dishonesty, I want the custody agreement in writing. No vague, we'll figure it out nonsense." Daniel's lawyer sighed. "Mr. Carter is willing to share custody." I turned to Daniel. "You're willing to share custody? Were you willing to share your honesty when you were sneaking around behind my back?" His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." I let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, now we're talking about fairness?" His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should." "No," Daniel exhaled. "Fine. Full custody. Victory." But I wasn't done. "I also won our house." Daniel's eyes widened. "What?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "I paid for most of that house. My name is on the mortgage. I'm not leaving my son without a home because of your mistakes." Daniel's lawyer looked at him. "Legally, she has a strong case." Daniel rubbed a hand down his face. "Jesus, Emily." I tilted my head. "A problem, Danny?" His nostrils flared. "You're just trying to punish me." I smiled. "No, Daniel. I'm just making sure I win this time." Silence. Then he exhaled and nodded. "Fine." And just like that, I had taken back everything he thought he could take from me. An hour later, I walked out of the office, my steps lighter than they had been in months. Daniel followed me outside. "Emily." I sighed, turning to face him. "What?" He hesitated. "Are you happy?" I studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I will be." His face twisted, like he wanted to say something, wanted to reach for me, to undo everything. But it was too late. I stepped back. "Goodbye, Daniel." And this time, when I walked away, I never looked back.